Hey, this is Russ from CrafterCMS, and this is our second video in our Model Context Protocol, or MCP series. In our first video, we installed a client, as you can see here on my screen, and we connected that to a generic MCP server out in the cloud. In this video, we're going to follow up with that by installing an MCP server right into our CrafterCMS project, and we'll be installing a tool there and calling that tool. That will show the complete life cycle of MCP living within your CrafterCMS project or across projects. So to get started, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and click on Project Tools and then Plugin Management. And you can see we've got our client installed here. And if we look at the configuration there, we can see that that again is right now pointed to an external MCP server. And what we're going to do is we're going to leave that alone for a second, and we're going to go to Search and Install. And we're going to this time look at the MCP server plugin. Let's just click on the details here and take a look at that for just a second. Here we can see some description of the plugin itself, and there is a bit of installation instructions to do. So we're going to be following those. So we'll come back to these instructions in a moment. So to get started, we'll go back to the plugin installation and just click Install. You can see there's nothing to configure here, so that makes it very simple. And what we're going to do then is close this here and go to Configuration. And that's going to get us started with the instructions. So we'll scroll up on the instructions and just follow them. So there are some prerequisites, so you can follow those. Those are already done in my environment. Now inside my project, I have to set up a couple things, and the first is the site config XML. So I'm just going to copy the contents of this area here, jump over, and we're going to go to the engine project configuration. That's right here. You can also filter for it, but we'll just click on it. And you can see it's empty to start. What we're going to do is just, the copy gives us just the body that we need. And you can see that we have some default configuration for cores, and then there's an allow public access. So for the purpose of this video, just like the last MCP server, we're going to go ahead and set this to true. And this means that all of our tools are public. There's another option that you can set up, which is authorized access, focused around a JWT token. The example here is Cognito. What we're going to do is we're just going to comment that out because we don't need it. All right, so now the configuration here looks a lot more simple. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save on that. And then if we look at the instructions, follow this further down, you can see here that we have to add the MCP server to our Spring context. So we'll copy this bit of code as well. And then we'll go down to our application context, and we're just going to go ahead and install that. And this will boot up our MCP server. Going back to our instructions, there are also URL rewrite rules that you need to use if you are authenticating your server. And these are very simply just copy these and go to URL rewrite engine, and you can just paste these in as so. What we'll do for now is we won't put those in place, but just to kind of show you that all of these rewrite rules are related to authorization. Since we have public access, we don't need that, so we're just going to cancel here. Now if we look at our instructions, the next thing to do is to basically set up a tool. So to do that, we've got to get some code, and what I'm going to do here is look for a service. You can see here we've got an airline service similar to the one we looked at in the last video. This is written in Groovy, and I'm just going to use the approach here where we're going to register a bean. So what we'll do is copy this, and you can see that this is in org Acme and is called Acme Airline Services. So I'm going to go back to my project now, and I'm going to go to scripts, and we'll open up classes. You can see there's some plugin based classes. We're going to right click, create a new folder, and call it org. Then we're going to right click, create a new folder, and call it Acme. And then inside that folder, we're going to create a new controller. Okay, and remember that controller was going to be called Acme Airline Services. So, Acme Airline Services. And the name is specific here because it has to match up with the class name that we're using inside the file. So once I click create, is add our service code. So you can see here we are declaring a tool with a return type of string, and we've set our description. There's also a scopes variable here, but since we have a public tool or a public MCP server, we don't have any scopes, so we're just going to remove these. These are just a comma separated list of scopes supported through our authentication. Below that, you can see we're declaring the two parameters that we need, which is a flight and a seat. And then the service is very, very simple. It just returns booked for everything. Well, let's make this a little bit smarter, and let's return a success only if you're on a specific flight, like our previous example. So I'm going to go ahead and say here that if the flight equals JetBlue 313, then it was a success. Otherwise, there's no seats available, right? Now, this is obviously very, very simple, but it does show where the joint point would be with our actual flight booking services that look at inventory and reservations and availability and so on. So this is enough to serve the point. So we're going to go ahead and click Save. Now, because we're using the Spring Bean annotation mechanism for announcing a tool and describing a tool, we have to update our application context XML to identify the bean. So what we're going to do is go back into our configuration. We can type application here, and you can see that that brings this file to the forefront. And all we need to do is declare this airline service. So going back to our config, we have a great example of that here. We're going to copy that, and we're just going to declare this bean. And because of our annotations, this bean scanner will find this bean. All right, so I'm going to save that. Now, it's worth noting that there are other ways to declare tools. Okay, you can declare tools based on REST services. You can use a nice spec, and there's also a way to use additional annotations so that you don't even have to declare the beans. You sort of declare the beans in the Groovy code itself. Okay, so there are other mechanisms here. You can read about that in the instructions. Now, we've declared our bean, so our MCP server now should be able to see that tool. And what we need to do is tell our client to call our MCP server. So to do that, we're going to click on Project Tools. We're going to go to Plugin Management. And for our client configuration, we're going to change our MCP server location to our local server now. So to do that, we will replace this value here with this value. So we're going to call localhost, and you can see that we're calling into our MCP server plugin. So now that we've done that, we can save that. And in theory, we should be able to talk through our chatbot to that tool. So let's go ahead and start off with something simple like hello. And we get back that we have a helpful assistant here ready to help us. So let's go ahead and try and book a flight. So what we'll do is we'll book 7A as our seat, and let's do American Airlines 313 as our flight. We're expecting this to be a full flight, which it is. So we're now going to try and book on JetBlue, which we expect to pass. So we'll try to book seat 11C on JetBlue 313. and you can see our seat has been successfully booked. So that's all there is to it. We can see now how easy it is to install an MCP server using the MCP server plugin, and then to add our own tools. Now, using just Crafter, we're able to create unbelievably sophisticated agentic digital experiences using just these two very simple to install and use plugins. So I'm excited to see what you guys come up with, and with that, happy crafting.